We're just going to do a quick sound test. Our next presentation is a remote presentation. Kirstie, can you hear us?
Hello, yes I can.
And is everyone in the room happy with that level of volume? Yep, we're getting the thumbs up, so everyone's happy with the volume.
Great, that's excellent.
So I'm just going to do a quick introduction. So Kirstie Nicholson is Coordinator Discovery at the University of Western Australia. She coordinates 3 core library services: unit readings, Get It document delivery, and OneSearch, the discovery layer. After spending much of 2018 implementing and fine-tuning Leganto, she has found that there's nothing more satisfying than completing a reading list. Kirstie is the inaugural winner of the Kay Pausty OAM, and I think I absolutely destroyed that pronunciation, scholarship.
That's right, Kirstie. Yep, that's correct.
Awarded at the State Library of Western Australia Foundation. She has previously worked in the public library sector and published the book Innovation in Public Libraries, Learning from International Library Practice in 2019. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in English and Ancient History with honours and a graduate diploma in Information and Library Studies. And she'll be talking to us about DIY for academics.
Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen now. So I hope that's all showing well. So hello, good morning. Welcome to my presentation, DIY for Academics, Achieving Self-Management in Leganto. My name is Kirstie Nicholson, and thank you so much to the ANZREG committee for allowing me to present all the way from Perth. I'm from the University of Western Australia, UWA, famous for Winthrop Hall, the peacocks that live at the Arts Building, and being on the banks of the Swan River. This is the Reid Library. This is the main library building on campus and the building where I work. And that's my window right there. And if you squint hard enough, you might see me there working on Leganto reading lists. My position is Coordinator Discovery. And this is kind of how I see myself with my safari hat and binoculars. And I coordinate 3 of the library services: document delivery service, the discovery layer, Primo VE, and our reading list service using Leganto. And so today I will be sharing the story about implementation of Leganto, but with particular focus on self-management by academics and our experiences of this. And before I go any further, I just want to define what I mean by self-management, because this is a term that we use here, but I'm not really sure how meaningful that is for anybody else. So when I talk about self-management of reading lists, what I mean is unit coordinators creating, editing, and submitting lists themselves in Leganto. Self-management gives unit coordinators autonomy over their reading lists, and it also has work efficiencies for the library. So these are the things I'm going to be going through today. I'm going to start talking about our reasons for changing our reading list system to Leganto. I'm going to talk about our new service model that we implemented, our implementation itself, our results in terms of self-management, and then our current challenges and our future plans. So I'll start off with why we changed. So our previous system that we had for reading lists was called Course Materials Online, or CMO. And with that system, we received lists from unit coordinators via email. So they would email us their readings, usually in a Word document attachment, or even with the readings in the email of in the text of the email. We would then create these lists in Alma course reserves, and students would have access to them via Primo. So students could type in the unit code, and they would get the records that were linked to that unit code in Primo. And it was the discovery team, my team, who are the team that processed the reading lists, that liaised with the unit coordinators. So we would be the ones that would communicate with them with questions about their lists. So why did we want to change from that system? Well, first of all, it was always supposed to be a temporary system, which kind of became permanent with age. So we used to have a dedicated reading list system that went out of business. And so we had put this system in place, but our intention had always been to replace it with a new dedicated reading list platform. It also didn't allow for any ongoing interaction with the lists by unit coordinators. Once they'd submitted it to us, that was kind of really it for them, unless they had questions that we needed answered. It was 100% library managed, so there was no ability for us to open up reading lists to unit coordinators. And because of this, and because of the size of lists, we had to limit them to essential items only. So unit coordinators potentially had other readings that they couldn't add to our reading list, the library reading list, sitting in other places. So we wanted them to be able to put all their readings in one place. And we had relatively low usage of course materials online, and we felt that that was because of the limited functionality we could offer. And it was really inefficient to process. So the staff had to kind of mark their progress within emails and annotate emails to show how they were going. And it was really impossible for me as a manager to track how we were going with reading lists, how many were complete, how many were in process. The only way I could do that is really go in and look at individual emails. So lots of really good reasons there for us to change. And we, of course, chose Leganto. So because we had all this wonderful new functionality that we got when we moved to Leganto, this really let us consider a new service model for our reading list service. So I'm going to talk about that now. What the changes that we made when we wrote our new service model is that we decided that self-management would be encouraged and supported. So self-management was the model that we really wanted to preference. Students would access their readings via the learning management system, which for us is Blackboard. So, and they would do this via the LTI link that you can configure with Leganto. We would allow non-essential items on this, so coordinators could put all their readings on the one list. And we changed our communication structure so that the engagement librarians at our library, who are the faculty liaison librarians, would be the ones to liaise with the unit coordinators about their lists. So we took that kind of responsibility and task from the list processing staff and placed it with the engagement team. And when we were creating this new service model, we did make some assumptions. So we did assume that academics wouldn't really want to learn a new system. We assumed that they would be too busy to self-manage their reading lists. And so they would actually really want the library to continue to create lists for them. And if we didn't do that, we thought that they probably wouldn't use Leganto. So why did we make these assumptions? Well, they're actually for really good reason. First of all, we know that academics are really busy and under a lot of pressure, particularly time pressure. We have a lack of administration staff at our institution, so after a restructure. So academics who formerly had support staff who could do reading list work for them no longer had that, and we thought that that would be a barrier to them engaging with reading lists. We also had another library system launching at the same time, which was not deliberate, it just turned out like that. And we felt that that might contribute to a feeling of systems overload for academics. And we'd had previous implementations where we hadn't had such a great response to changes. And so perhaps we were a little bit cautious. But because of the assumptions that we made for these reasons, we decided to retain a library managed list option in our service model. We did place some restrictions around this. So first of all, we would only offer this as a last resort. We would do as much as we could to encourage self-management. And we also wouldn't take advantage of all the functionality in Leganto if we were going to be the ones who worked on the list. So we weren't going to use the sections. We would not necessarily add all readings to the list, depending on the size of the list. And we wouldn't use Cite It to add things like YouTube videos and websites. So if the academic really wanted to make full use of Leganto, then they needed to engage with it themselves. So I'm going to talk about our actual implementation now and let you know how that went. So we started off with a 10-unit pilot, and we followed that up with a full implementation in July 2018. We branded it as unit readings, and that name was actually chosen by the participants of our pilot. We asked them what they wanted to call it, and that's what they chose. And we rolled over all the existing lists that were in Alma, so that academics who were already using who had been using our previous system didn't need to start from scratch. And both the discovery team, which is the list processing team, and the engagement team were involved in the project. So it was a cross-team project, and we tried to involve all the relevant staff from the library. So what were our results in terms of self-management? It was very good. So in that first semester of having unit readings, or Leganto, we had 97% of lists were self-managed. These are lists that were reviewed, submitted, published by unit coordinators themselves with support from library staff. So of course support was available, we were just implementing, and we did provide assistance. And to put some numbers around that, that was 221 lists that we had in total, and so 215 of them were self-managed. And then the following semester, which was semester 1 this year, we had 99.5% of lists. And that actually turned out to only one list that was that had the library managed model. Of the lists that were library managed, the reasons really varied. So it wasn't necessarily because the unit coordinator didn't want to engage with Leganto. Sometimes it was because we needed to provide access to regional students. Sometimes academics were working overseas and it was really difficult for them to be trained or learn a new system. And sometimes it was situations like someone was retiring, they only had one more unit to go, and it really wasn't worth their while to invest in learning a new system. We also had some wonderful quotations that we received from unit coordinators about the self-management and Leganto. I'm loving this interface, so intuitive and easy to use compared with the previous CMO. It's easy to use, easy to integrate with the LMS. Most of all, it's fast and responsive. You can make a variety of resources available quickly without the long lag and turnaround times. I know that second one really sounds like a library staff member wrote it, 'cause it's very detailed, but these are comments that did come out of our pilot survey, so they're a genuine academic comment. So why did we get such a high rate of self-management when we were anticipating that many more academics would choose the library manager list option, or that we would get a bit more resistance to the self-management model? And we identified 5 main reasons why we think this is the case. The first one is because of the pilot. So we had a 10-unit pilot that was involving 7 unit coordinators. And out of this pilot, we really got some champions for Leganto. We found that when we did the implementation, when we were doing engagement activities at like teaching and learning committees or faculty meetings, that the people that were involved in the pilot would actually speak up and say, hey, I use Leganto, and I really liked it for this reason. And that was so wonderful to get that support from them. And we felt that that was really much more, a much better way to get people on board if their peer speaks up in favour of something than if it's the library staff kind of selling something to them. So that was a really valuable thing we got out of the pilot. We also got, as you saw, some really great comments out of the survey from both staff and students. And so that was something that we could use in our promotional activities for the implementation. It also gave us a really great confidence boost. So we thought that Leganto was great, but it was really good to have that confirmed by things like those comments as part of the pilot. And it affirmed the self-management model. So we thought that academics might want to create and manage their reading lists, but it was really good to see that, yes, they were willing to be engaged with Leganto. And because of the scale of the pilot, we were able to do one-on-one contact and training with the academics that were involved. We met individually with them all, and it really taught us a lot about their needs for a reading list system and what of the functionality and features they would be most interested in. So that was really valuable information that we could then feed into the main implementation. Secondly, was really the functionality of Leganto itself. Because it was such a huge jump for us, and we weren't able to really offer anything to academics before, that in itself, I think, really helped. But also, Leganto is built and designed to encourage academics to work on this themselves. So it does have, features like they can, as they add resources to the reading list, they will auto-complete depending on your configuration. They can see the changes in status to citations and the list, so they can see the progress that's happening. So they do get a bit of a positive feedback loop as they're working on the list to see that things are progressing. So we think that this really promotes self-management behaviour. Thirdly, was really library staff confidence. I think something we were really successful in was having an all-library approach to the Leganto implementation. So we had representatives from both the list processing team and the faculty liaison or engagement team on the project. And we had training for all staff that would have anything to do with Leganto. So frontline staff who may have students ask about it, the staff that would be promoting and doing engagement activities, and the staff that were processing lists and then supporting the system. So everyone really had the opportunity to see Leganto and to learn about it beforehand. And additionally, management was really clear that the project was a priority, not just for the list processing team or for the reading list team, but for the library as a whole. So this really meant that all library staff were really invested in the success of Leganto. Additionally, we really tried hard to make the roles of the library staff really well delineated. So because we would change that communication structure from the list team to the engagement team, we actually put a lot of thought into library roles beforehand, and we put that in our service model guidelines. And we were very specific about who does what and when certain tasks get transferred to another team. So I think that when we came to the implementation, everyone was really clear about what their role was, and that really helped. Additionally, we were all really confident in the benefits of the system. So it was really easy to be enthusiastic and promote it to other people when you're confident in something yourself. And we really tried hard to equip the engagement librarians to adequately support unit coordinators. So because they were going to be the ones liaising now with unit coordinators, they had to understand how the course reserve structure works in Alma. They had to be familiar with the Leganto interface and to be able to do basic troubleshooting. And they also had to know when they could, who was there to support them if they had questions. So we really worked hard to make sure they were comfortable with the system and they were confident in doing that on training and support with unit coordinators. Next, I think, was really our communication strategy. So we really used a top-down approach that followed the university structure, and we aimed to create a general awareness of unit readings, or Leganto, at kind of every level, so that when it was implemented, no one was like, I didn't hear about that. So we wanted to just make sure that that filtered down through the whole university. We did keep our communication quite high level and just increased it in detail as we got kind of closer to the actual unit coordinators. And we wanted to leverage our best contact between the library and the faculties. And for us, that was the library managers. So we identified that quite early on. And as far as our messaging went, we really put a big emphasis that Leganto was a university supported project. It wasn't just a library project, that it was a project that tied into the university strategy and into university goals. We emphasised as well that the reading list system was not another piece of paperwork that academics had to fill in. It was really part of the library suite of support for unit coordinators in preparing for their unit. So we really tried to get that message across. And we also focused on the benefits of the system and why academics should be on board with it. And that's benefits for them and benefits for the students. Okay, and then the last reason is that we really used any lists that were sent to us in the old way, so as emails, as a liaison opportunity. So if we received a reading list attachment in an email, then that was a cue for the engagement team to contact that person and offer to come and show them Leganto and put that list that they'd created into the platform. So we really tried to use those as liaison opportunities. And additionally, we used that option of the library managed list as a last resort. So we really tried to encourage self-management as much as possible, and only move to a library managed option if it just wasn't worthwhile, if we knew that things weren't going to work out. And that decision was totally up to the engagement librarians. That was their call to make. So we really they had their discretion in when they thought it was kind of not going to work. So just to sum up all those reasons why we thought the self-management rates were so high when we weren't expecting them to be, was because of our pilots, because of the functionality of Leganto itself, because of library staff confidence, our communication strategy, and that the library managed lists were used as a liaison opportunity. So even though we are happy with our self-management rates and it did exceed our expectations, now kind of over a year after we implemented, we do still have some specific challenges. And we have some challenges with self-management and some sort of broader challenges with engagement with the reading list service. So as far as self-management challenges go, the first one we kind of had was publishing. So we planned that this would be the academics' responsibility to publish lists themselves, and we would not do this for them. But we found in practice that they often neglected this step, and they did require a lot of reminding and follow-up to actually publish their lists. Full engagement with the interface. So a lot of people, they would go in, they would create their list, they would send them to us, but they wouldn't come back to Leganto. So they had a kind of set and forget mentality. They didn't return to look at student interaction with the lists, to look for notes, to add additional readings. So full engagement with the interface is a challenge. Utilising more self-management functionality. So this is kind of a challenge for the library. We haven't opened up all the options in Leganto for self-management. So the ability to roll your own list over, we don't have available. The ability to hide links and embed certain resources, we haven't opened those ones up. So that's for us to decide, how far do we want to go and where do the benefits outweigh kind of the costs. So that's a challenge for us. And support content. So this is something we're still grappling with, is what level of support content to provide. How do you provide the key information that people need in a way that they can access it easily without creating a whole manual of content? We still want to maintain a really clear and easy to navigate website. So we're kind of still working out what the best way forward is to support content. Additionally, there's some support content that comes with Leganto that doesn't really meet our needs. So Ex Libris do provide a lot of videos, but they don't match how we've configured our interface. And there's some great options for in-context support, but it's not really configurable enough for us to meet our needs for support content. So just some challenges there. And in terms of kind of broader challenges with the reading list service, transitioning users of the old system. So we had about a third of our reading lists did not come across into Leganto. So there's some users out there that were using course materials online that haven't transitioned. So we want to find those people, and if they're still teaching units, to get them to transition them into the new system and find out why that didn't happen for them. We also have uneven usage of the reading list service across our faculties, and this isn't anything new with Leganto. It's something that has always been the case. Our arts, humanities, business law faculty is really high user, and our science faculties are not hardly use it at all. We're really hoping that the functionality of Leganto will be more suited to the kinds of resources that those faculties want to put in their reading lists, and we'll be able to grow usage in those areas. And use of the learning management system. So many people use the LMS to provide readings to their students, and this is kind of their established process. And they don't really see the need to transition to Leganto or, a dedicated reading list platform. So this is probably our biggest challenge for existing academics, is trying to get them to change their habit and getting them on board with the benefits of using Leganto. So to address these challenges and to achieve our service aims for Leganto, we have made some plans. First of all, to tackle the problem with publishing, we decided that from this current semester, semester 2, that the library will take over the responsibility for publishing lists. And it's really easy to do this in Alma, so it's not a problem. But what we decided to do was change our messaging so that our emphasis in communications was to get academics to switch on their LTI link in the LMS, because that's something else that they need to do. And we would focus on that, and we would look after publishing. Since we made that decision, Ex-Libris have added the option to add a publish button to the reading list, which we think would really help if we had, had not decided to do that. Student benefits. So we've really identified that student benefits are the main reason why, main motivator for academics to transition to Leganto. So we wanted to focus on this more, communicate this more, and use the analytics available to us to demonstrate the benefit to students in using Leganto. Targeted communication. So we want to define groups of Leganto users and non-users and tailor our communication content appropriately. And we also want to better map our teaching periods to align our Leganto communications for when unit coordinators are actually preparing for the units. And we want to tie that into the rest of their unit preparation. Support model. So this is perhaps not changing our support model, but communicating it better. We feel that with the implementation, we didn't really get the message across, probably because we were focusing on our existing users, that if people were at all interested in looking at Leganto, then the library would really support them. We were happy to come to them and show them and see how it could work for them. So we feel like that was probably not adequately communicated, and we want to focus on that more. And we have a unit at our university, which is the Educational Enhancement Unit. And this is the unit that support academics in their teaching role. And so we really want to work more closely with this unit. We want to embed Leganto into their workshops, into their inductions. They do an induction to the LMS, and we really like to include Leganto in that. And we kind of want to use their staff as champions of Leganto, and also in particular to work with them to target staff new to teaching, to expose them to Leganto early on in their career at UWA. And finally, we want to do some user experience testing just with unit coordinators to isolate their pain points and reasons why they might not want to use the system. So I've covered what our previous system was and why we changed, our new service model that we put together, our implementation, our results with self-management and the reasons why we think that it worked, our current challenges and our future plans. So that's my presentation, DIY for Academics, Achieving Self-Management in Leganto. Thank you so much for listening, and I think we've got perhaps time for some questions.
Thank you so much for that, Kirstie. Yes, we have 2 minutes for questions. And I also want to add that I'm really going to be curious to see how you go with your usability testing. That is one of your future plans.
Yes, us too.
Just waiting to see if there are any questions. No, the room is being very quiet here. I know we've got a question. Sometimes you just have to give them a minute.
Hi, it's Megan from Monash here. I just wanted to ask a quick question. You said that the one of your strategies was to clearly link the introduction of Leganto to the university's goals and demonstrate that this would help deliver them. Can you talk a little bit about how you did that?
Yeah, so I believe that the how was probably more in the area of the engagement librarians when they went and delivered their introductions about Leganto and their promotional material about Leganto at kind of teaching and learning committees. And I know we had a really kind of concise one-page document of this material that we thought the librarian should cover when they did those kinds of activities. So I guess what we tried to do was weave Leganto into any planned kind of meetings or attendance at any events that they were already doing, and that would have been in that kind of script. So I don't know precisely what they said, but it would have been along the lines of the education strategy that the university has, and how Leganto ties into that for student benefits. And here we're kind of all about, probably like lots of other universities, we're really trying to focus on student retention and getting new students. So I'm sure that it would have been along those lines. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
If you would like more detail, it was Megan from Monash. If you want to email me, I might be able to send you some more info.
Thanks, Kirstie.
Thank you. And I think that does take us time-wise to our next presentation. So thank you very much, Kirstie, for your time.
Great. Thank you so much.
Our next presentation is by Aleksandra. Aleksandra moved to New Zealand in 2008 from Serbia, where she gained her degrees in mathematics and computer science. She's worked as a university teaching assistant, a programmer, a business intelligence developer, a data analyst, and an IT product owner. Since 2016, she has developed e-resources and print collection usage statistics and analysis at the University of Auckland Library. This work enables the library to better align scholarly collection with the university's research and teaching needs. Her talk today is going to examine how the University of Auckland has presented their collections, which enables collection managers to make data-driven decisions.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Thank you everyone for coming. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to present to you. And I would like to thank our ANZREG committee for sponsoring me to attend INCLU conference this year. And my Te Tumu Herenga collections team for their encouraging and coaching me on my print collection journey. This is a story of how University of Auckland Libraries and Learning Services has used Alma Analytics dashboards as a print collection visualization tool, and how our customized overview dashboard informs relegation and retention decisions. When I use the word relegation, I mean we relegate the book or send the book to our off-campus storage. And when I use the word retention, I mean that we keep our book in our main general library collection. The traditional era in academic libraries has been print collection centered. And it is shifting now to more of learning environment and the services which our libraries offers, like tutoring, learning services, collaboration spaces, and others. Since the role of print collection has changed and keeps on changing, it requires that we use data to improve and simplify our reading, relocating, and withdrawing, and to allow our collection managers to interact better with their collections. When I use the word weeding, I mean we are systematically removing resources from a library based on a selected criteria. A year ago, the University of Auckland Libraries started the new service delivery model. It created a significant transformation on all levels of libraries and learning services. Following that implementation of the new model, library processes and spaces required reshaping, and a considerable amount of print collections and material needed to be relocated in a short time. Just to make you more familiar with the situation, a few specialist libraries were closing in less than a year, and we are going to close a couple of more in the future. You can have data without information, but you cannot have information without data. Content is creating information. Meaning is creating knowledge. Properly created knowledge creates wisdom. Where would you like to be when you are making your own decisions? On which level? And especially for your institution. To do better planning, we need to provide quick answers to a number of questions. And the main idea is to protect our scholarly records, ensure access to information, and allows library to reclaim the space in the library. And finally, we would like to reduce some costs. Alma Analytics offers us the possibility to run quite detailed reports, as you know. However, it requires a lot of work after that to generate them, first knowledge how to run them, and clean and process those data in a proper reading list and some visual representation. We have done this work quite a few times in our during our analysis and planning process. But it was quite time-consuming and requires a close involvement with a data analyst. And suddenly, we had to move a lot of monographs in a restricted time and space. So we are doing that quite detailed process, but only once before the final reading. And we had two options. First option is to do how we did in the past with 100% of accuracy, but a lot of manual work, or to just do a little bit quicker solution, 90% of accuracy using dashboards for planning part. And what would you choose? For example, raise your hand if you would choose option 1. And raise your hand if you would choose option 2, so everyone is for 2. Yeah, the University of Auckland made that sort of decision, and we chose the second option, not just because of time. We would like to improve our data, and dashboard allows us to clean them. We actually want to go beyond the existing reports. And how we can present the narratives behind the numbers. Can we use dashboards? And who is our dashboard for? Which stakeholders? We try to create a user story based on power audience metrics, influence versus interest metrics. This metrics helps us to split our users into 4 groups based on their level of interest and influence. Then when we analyze needs of each single group, what they really need, for example, if someone has low level of influence and interest, dashboard would be more than enough for them. And people with a high level of influence but still low level of interest would like to see dashboard like a big picture. But of course, for someone who has high level of interest and influence, like collection manager, then those people would need both, possibly, and dashboards and reports. So as a collection manager, I want to have a dashboard so that I can inform my stakeholders and senior managers or faculties. We wanted to ensure that non-Alma Analytics expert can understand what the report means and how to run them and communicate them further. Finally, if the statistics are boring, you've got the wrong number or their representation. The main reasons why we still choose Alma Analytics prior to, for example, Green Glass, which OCLC offers us for this part of work, was that all reporting data are dynamic, and that highlights the accuracy. And we are continuously improving in cleaning our information in libraries collection. We wanted to save money to pay additional services and time to avoid unnecessary data export. And we had challenges, but we managed to find solutions for them. Unfortunately, we had 5 different classification systems at the University of Auckland. We had to align DEWI, Library of Congress, UDC, Universal Decimal Classification, MOIS, and National Library of Medicine classification subjects, to Library of Congress classification subjects. It requires extensive work on creating that algorithm to align them together. But that actually adds a great value to perform unique visualization of all University of Auckland's collection. And we had a couple of historical issues with the data, like transferring from Voyager to Alma. Some of our historical usage has not been properly transferred, and some of fields are not so clear, like year of publication, and multi-volume work had different conventions in different libraries. And we made then decision to only display all data which have proper format and they are clean. Because of that, that's decreasing the accuracy. We are excluding some information from dashboard. To present dashboard, we had a couple of exporting issues with size, comparisons to report, and better formatting. We would like still to have better formatting. And I hope that the new release in March 2020, like Ex Libris told us, will give us those solutions. Click. Uh-oh. And now I'm going to talk about how we did it. Don't become a novelist. Be a data analyst. Much more scope for imagination. Let me share the overview dashboard page where I grouped records by subjects and represented their usage. We can see the average usage of our pre-selected collection, and this has on the left corner. Average total usage of this collection is 27, and average Alma usage is only 4. Alma was introduced 5 years ago, and immediately that shows the huge drop in usage of our print collections. Dashboard allows to filter out our physical materials by locations, type, accession and publication years, and classification numbers. The graph represents different color codes based on amount of checkout history. Red represents something with no checkout history. Then dark blue, low numbers are up to 10. Medium, light green, from 10 to 100. And black is with high, 100 or more. And underneath is the table with all sorts of data from the graph. If you torture data long enough, it will confess. Another visual representation can be by year of publication to see the age of our collection and identify which publication years are used the most. So average year of this selection is 1987. As you can see, we decided to create year bands to represent monograph usage as evenly as much as possible. And those data are as well available in the table. Next page is for identification of possible duplicates. There is a brief split between single and multi-volume work. And now the table illustration is more detailed with most of our valuable information for more in-depth analysis. So that means that our pre-selected criteria grabbed all possible duplicates from one collection and then merged with all other different locations across the university and then bring us back with those results. So we have like 9,000 possible duplicates, and in total 32,000 records, around 32,000 records are in duplication. And this view could give us a relatively quick answer to the following question. How many titles are duplicated in different locations, and how many are really needed? Another example is of quite detailed representation. So then the best suggestion which I'm giving to collections team is start with a visual one, find something which is interesting for you to go more into that, and then use that and export those reports, and then you can do more detailed analysis or further. Now I'm going to present a different search, the preservation one. These are for looks that we need to protect, books which we need to protect, and I've searched here for items older than 1900. We can try different searches and different criteria, based on the different criteria. The overview dashboard is quite suitable for making a local decisions and a quick, fast information. So for this exercise, I just run those dashboard pages, and for two different libraries. One is fine art and one is educational library, on following criteria like monographs count, 0 uses, low uses, medium uses, over 10 years old, and possible duplicates. Then when I was comparing those information, apart from different monograph count, they have everything quite similar, and their behavior is quite similar, maybe with slight difference on possible duplication. So we can then identify some pattern in behavior between different collections. Any powerful idea is fascinating and absolutely useless until we choose to use it. To make knowledgeable decisions and simplify and rationalize them, we are trying to automate and define at least 80% of the analysis based on the following parameters. Apart from them, we are using last borrowing date. Are you using any other parameter when you are analyzing your own collections? Apart from this.
Maybe public. Maybe if you could repeat it afterwards.
Yes, I can.
Our own publications, things that we've published, and things like PCs. Sometimes things that are valuable. Sometimes things that have been gifted that we can't get rid of.
So are you storing information about gifted or special
In various places.
collections in various, okay, you don't have one specific field.
All different fields.
Yeah, that is quite similar to our library, and we are encouraging that we can store those information for later usage. We can't use them right now for those automated process, but possibly in the future if we can organize them better. We are using different scenarios and their variations for relocating our materials, such as soft, medium, and hard methodology. I'll try to explain that to you. Like for soft methodology, we are using long publishing tail, and that's, for example, for art, architecture, music. Okay. And medium for literature. Then hard for latest publishing records. Those methodologies has been created based on the nature of specific collection and information which Alma Analytics offers. And our main goal is to reduce our manual work, all those intervention parts, that we can have only two categories, retain and relegate. To do that, those scenarios can be quite complex, and we can't do them in one simple dashboard part. Then we decided to use them, like apply those inside in the report and redo those filters. So they are less now. Application of all our, for example, soft methodology is underneath the report, and we get some sort of information for future predictions. So for any collection, we can see how many of them we can retain or relegate immediately without further calculation. And of course, there are a lot of possible improvements for cleaning data, better organization of reports, weighted indexes, something which possibly Exlibris can give us to improve those reports. Data is a precious thing and will last longer than the systems themselves. And I fully agree with the statement of the inventor of the World Wide Web. What our future will be? Will the University of Auckland become eco-sustainable, environmental-oriented in the stunning New Zealand nature, or a leader in cutting-edge technologies with augmented reality? Or maybe a profound and balanced mixture of both. In other situations, our analysis can support and inform the right decisions of the library's collections and University of Auckland's vision. We'll keep on following indicated trends and simplifying processes to provide a seamless user experience. And now I would be interested to hear from you, your questions or thoughts.
Jessie from Bond. I have a specific analytics question. I really liked your slide with the screenshot of your collection by publication year. The publication field, or the publication date field in analytics often has like the copyright like a C followed by the year. What field did you use to generate those reports just with the actual year?
Beginning of publication dates, that
Okay.
was our field which we used because that's the cleanest one. And then I ran a report to give our collections team other fields which they can clean, those which are not matching standards. So they have a little bit of work around that.
One other question. It would be also fantastic to see these reports maybe available in the community area in analytics. So that would be, great just to be able to run off different institutions.
Yes, that was my intention. After this conference, I'm going to make them available. Although there are quite specific words for cleaning some parts. Hopefully, you can reuse it for your libraries, but I can't promise that they will work automatically.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Aleksandra. It's Skelk here from Victoria University. So we've signed up with Green Glass as well. And I'm just wondering, are you using Green Glass with this approach, or are you using just this approach?
We are using just this approach because Green Glass offered us one-off export to those data, and that was not working for us. We are continuously changing our collections, and we can't use one-off export for our systems.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. That was very informative. It's Alison Sinclair from the University of the Sunshine Coast. I'm interested in, you'll be aware, of course, that Ex Libris have released some reports for P and E crossover and duplication. And I'm just wondering how you approach the issue where you've got a print copy of something and an electronic copy exists, but it's in a subscription aggregator, for instance. And how you mitigate the risk around the chance of that item not being available any longer in the aggregator collection.
Yes, because of that we excluded that from the dashboard, that we can't generate right now that sort of information because they required a little bit more detailed work or manual work for someone to determine first if this is license or lease, or if you are matching print to electronic collections. So they should be.
So are you saying you excluded anything that was in a leased collection?
Can you please repeat, because I can't hear properly?
Oh, sorry. Did you include subscribed ebooks when you were doing an analysis between print and e, or did you not?
We excluded. We are just analyzing print collections without electronic. That is our second step, that we can try to give that sort of view, how many of them are existing in our electronic.
Good luck with that. Thanks.
I know. So if anyone likes more information or has questions, please feel free to contact me via email.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kirstie. And if you figure out the print and electronic dedupe analysis, it sounds like you might have another presentation there. Next up, we have Erin presenting on behalf of Sonja Dunning about their experiences thus far with CDI. Erin and Sonja are both from the University of Western Australia, and they're both subscriptions librarians. Sonja is the project manager of the University of Western Australia's Libraries CDI working group, and for those of you that aren't aware, University of Western Australia are one of the early adopters, is that what they're calling it? Early adopters for the CDI. So ANZREG specifically asked UWA if they could send someone to give us an update on their experiences. And I'll just give you a heads up that If you have any technical questions about how CDI works, they're probably best directed at Ex Libris, but Erin can probably give us a good library experience presentation and answer any sort of similar questions at the end.
Okay, so in March this year, UWA was officially invited to join Ex Libris' Central Discovery Index Working Group after we indicated our interest earlier in the year. The working group was officially scheduled to commence in August, and we commenced preparation by watching their webinars in May. UWA utilises Alma for our library management system and Primo VE for our discovery layer, and we haven't ever been a Summon user, so we're not able to speak on what the experience will be with Summon users for CDI. However, while representatives for the Ex Libris working group for CDI weren't able to attend today, they are happy for us to ask questions, so they have provided an email address which we'll show on the final slide. So some of what I'm discussing today was covered by Melanie yesterday, but we'll be looking at it a bit more closely. And as Amelia mentioned, I'm not actually a member of the working group, but I'm presenting on behalf of Sonja Dunning, who's the project manager. Oh, there it is. Okay, so during this presentation, I'll be discussing the features of the CDI and its benefits, UWA's expectations and experiences of the working group, and how we're planning to approach the change, and the project timeline, including the rollout for all institutions. I'll end with some screenshots that will highlight the changes within Alma and Primo, and I'll mention some additional changes to be deployed, although at this time we don't have the ability to view all of the changes in the test environment because they haven't all been rolled out yet. Testing is still ongoing. The final slide will contain some links to Ex Libris resources that they've published so far, and some of the information from this presentation was derived from those also. Okay, this Central Discovery Index will unify and replace both the Primo Central Index and the Summon Index, and support both Primo and Summon to give access to Ex Libris provided data. And to provide a brief background, the Primo Central Index, or the PCI, is a centralised index that encompasses hundreds of millions of metadata records harvested from many publishers and aggregators. These metadata records include journal articles, ebooks, conference proceedings, etc. The records are harvested into Primo based on what collections are activated in the PCI, i.e. if your institution subscribes to a collection and activates it in the PCI, the article metadata records on that database will be harvested into Primo and can be searched. The PCI is currently managed by a separate system to Alma and Primo. As part of the migration to the Central Discovery Index, rather than having to maintain a separate system, for Primo VE users, such as ourselves, this system will be integrated into Alma, so that activation of collections for search and discovery in Primo becomes a part of the electronic collection activation workflow, instead of being a separate system. So Ex Libris have stated that the benefits for Alma and Primo users will include faster update cycles for availability settings and activations, and this is including new content, from once a week as it currently stands to within 24 to 48 hours. It will also be a single activation to publish content to Primo rather than having to activate a resource in Alma and then again in Primo Central. So our workload is going to be halved, and it reduces the possibility of Primo Central activations being forgotten. There will be a daily rights update for electronic holdings, for example, index for search and/or delivery, and whether or not you have full text access. Rather than the grouped records that currently display in Primo search results, when there's multiple PCI records available for the same article, the results will be merged into one Primo record, eliminating the multiple versions record in Primo. There's also going to be a new search algorithm that will change some of the search and ranking within Primo. There'll be expanded indexing and more granular resource types within the CDI than there currently is in the PCI. And of course, there's going to be benefits for Ex Libris themselves. So they believe that the move to CDI will result in a better capacity for content ingest, enhanced ranking algorithms, increased stability, and increased scalability and improved infrastructure that is designed to address future challenges. So UWA had several reasons for responding to Ex Libris's call for nominations to join the CDI working group. We particularly wanted enhanced discovery. We found that the quality of some of the metadata in the PCI has been lacking, as I'm sure a lot of you understand, and can often cause access issues for our users due to incorrect details such as the DOIs, page numbers, article titles, and etc. Management and correction of these issues has proven difficult and time-consuming. We're hoping that with the unification of the PCI records and the summon records is going to result in better quality metadata. We also would like to streamline library management. So rather than maintaining the electronic collections in two separate systems, i.e. activating the collection in Alma and then having to go into the PCI and activating it again, we'll be able to activate and deactivate resources for access and search as part of the one workflow in Alma, which is going to be part of the electronic collection activation. Also to increase the operational efficiencies, we currently have different teams at UWA managing the Primo central activations than the ones managing the electronic collection activations. So there's a duplication of effort by staff, and that sometimes there's delays in activation. So we're hoping that by joining the working group, we're able to ensure that some of these issues are resolved by Ex Libris. So the CDI working group is made up of staff from 5 institutions worldwide, who along with UWA include Harvard University, the Minnesota Program for Automated Library Systems Consortia, University of Edinburgh, and the University of Liège. We've so far had 3 webinar sessions with Ex Libris, but due to the time zones, we've had to meet separately to the other institutions. Once to kick off the working group and the first stage of testing, and once more for the testing phases 2 and 3. These sessions last around 45 minutes, during which Ex Libris would present a PowerPoint of what to expect during the testing and what kind of feedback they're seeking, such as the interface appearance and language, and in addition to any more technical aspects. So the project timeline includes the tasks given by Ex Libris to the working groups and Ex Libris's expected timeline. There have been some delays to the commencement of test phases 2 and 3 while Ex Libris conducted analyses of our results, but so far we've been able to keep to all of our deadlines. So testing part 1 was a Primo Central to CDI move report, and in preparation for this phase of testing, Ex Libris migrated all of our PCI activations to the CDI. As sometimes this was not a one-to-one relationship between the two systems, the aim of this part of the testing was to ensure that the PCI to CDI activation report, or the move report, provided by Ex Libris was correctly reflecting our activations in the CDI. In addition to a test plan and test scenarios, in order to conduct this testing, Ex Libris provided us with a PCI activation report, i.e. what resources we already had activated in the PCI, and an Alma activation report, i.e. what electronic collections we'd already set up in Alma, and a move report of the CDI activations. So testing part 2 was a single activation from the Alma user interface. So this part of the testing aimed to compare the current PCI activations to the activations within the Alma test environment, and to ensure that the results were as expected, and also to test the workflow of activating the CDI collections as part of the electronic collection activation process. So this stage of the testing really focused on the Alma part of it. In order to conduct this testing, Ex Libris gave us access to a test Alma environment, a known issues list, and 2 test checklists. So testing part 3 is the CDI searching and full text indication in Primo. So far, this part of the testing has only just commenced. So the third and final phase of the testing is aiming to confirm that the search and ranking is working as expected in Primo VE, and that full text is correctly indicated. For this part of the testing, we're also expected to be provided with a known issues list and a test checklist for testing the search and ranking in Primo, as well as a dedicated Primo CDI testing URL. Okay, so we'll just go through each of the phases in a bit more detail. So the purpose of phase 1 of the testing was to verify the effectiveness of the migration tool, to ensure that the export of the activated resources from Alma and the PCI would be accurately reflected in the CDI, and that unactivated PCI collections weren't moved from Primo Central to Alma. The testing itself comprised of an analysis of several reports and spreadsheets. We came across a couple of concerns. Firstly, that our local collections won't be mapped, so we may have to change the way that they're set up in Alma, and that there were some duplicate collections in the PCI, which Ex Libris is now investigating. This phase of the testing also had a subtask planned in case the migration needed to be redone. As far as we understand, this wasn't required. Okay, so the purpose of phase 2 of the testing was to make sure that the Alma interface changes were user-friendly and could be used to view and filter on CD-related fields for electronic collections included in the CDI, activate, deactivate and update electronic collections in the CDI, view, export and update activations in the search for CDI, assign users different user roles and check their impact on the CDI functionality in the Alma interface. So there will be some new user roles associated with CDI. So there's the existing electronic inventory operator, which will only be able to view the CDI settings for an electronic collection, so not edit it. There'll be now a CDI inventory operator that will be able to edit the CDI settings in an electronic collection, but they won't be able to edit the rest of the collection. And there'll be a combined electronic and CDI inventory operator that will have editing rights for the full electronic collection, including the CDI component. We did raise a few issues with Ex Libris at this stage as well, such as the fact that a large number of the collections, over 3,000, were returned in one search scenario that were not in the CDI and did not have any CDI fields displaying. There were also some inaccurate result counts for keyword searches. These will hopefully be addressed for the final rollout. So phase 3 of the testing. I'm not able to speak on the outcomes of phase 3 of the testing as we had yet to commence this at the time of writing the presentation. It's only actually ongoing currently. However, we know that it will be focused on the Primo user interface, in particular user experience and the end-to-end flow, and that it should entail the increase in the number of results due to improvements in the search algorithm, differences in search and ranking between the Primo Central and the CDI. The full text rights are behaving as expected with regards to indication and linking, how a record displays in Primo VE when either guests or users are signed in, and languages other than English are displaying, including those with different character sets and diacritics. So separate to the activities of the working group, at UWA we've also planned to undertake several additional tasks as part of our migration to the CDI. For some time we've wanted to review our guideline for the Primo Central Index or PCI maintenance, including criteria for resource activation and deactivation. We also decided to take this opportunity while working on the project to review our current PCI activations and ensure they're correctly reflected in the PCI prior to our migration. As I mentioned earlier, we have 2 different teams managing the PCI and the electronic collections, so sometimes there are kind of differences between what's activated. We also intend to conduct an analysis of the PCI performance prior to the CDI implementation, as well as an analysis of the CDI performance after implementation in order to measure any changes and/or improvements to the search outcomes. We'll be examining elements such as the search result relevance, the quality and accuracy of the metadata. Lastly, following completion of the project, we intend to streamline the process of the managing CDI resources in order to increase accuracy, decrease our staff processing time, and improve the student experience. This will include determining criteria for enabling and disabling resources within the CDI and to integrate this within our own established collection management practices. Okay, so we're going to move on to a few screenshots. I can't show you a live demonstration of what CDI activation process will look like in Alma as the test environment is locked to our specific IP address. However, this will give you an idea of what it's going to look like. So this is the electronic collection search results within the Alma CDI test environment. So just looking at it a bit more closely, these collections that are in the CDI will have CDI information on the left of each record. This includes whether it's in the CDI, whether it's active for search in the CDI, what the CDI search rights are, so whether they're free or subscribed, the CDI full text rights, and the CDI full text linking, whether that's the link resolver. There'll also be added to Alma a few new facets related to the CDI, including active for search and not active for search. There will be more CDI facets prior to implementation that we haven't been given access to yet. So these won't be the only facets added relating to CDI. So this is the Alma Cdi Activation within the collection. So this will be where you'll be able to activate and deactivate a collection for search for the CDI from within the electronic collection search. We found through our testing at UWA that the new activation and deactivation workflow for collections is much easier, faster and streamlined than currently managing it in the PCI. But one criticism that we've had is that a lot of the information that you get about collections in the Primo Central Index is not available in the new CDI view. For example, the descriptive paragraphs about a collection and what it contains is not going to be currently migrated into Alma. And we feel that this may remove some of the troubleshooting functionality of the current PCI. Okay, so this is the advanced search screen results in Alma, showing some of the additional filters that are going to be available. So as you can see, you can search on the CDI full text rights, the CDI full text linking, and whether an electronic collection is in the CDI. Phase 1 of the testing was made up confirming the behaviour of these views. Okay, so this is within the electronic collection themselves. I think Melanie showed a similar screenshot yesterday. You can see in this screenshot there's going to be a CDI tab added to the collection record. So as I mentioned earlier, a new Alma user role for CDI activations will be created called the CDI inventory operator. And users with this role assigned will be able to customise this tab, or if they have the combined electronic and CDI inventory operator role. So looking at this one a bit closer again. The tab is where the button for activating, deactivating a collection for search in the CDI will be located, along with the ability to categorise the package as selective or full text. i.e., so if you edit this tab so that the activation status is searchable, the associated metadata records will then be harvested into Primo for searching. If you subscribe to all titles in the collection, then all the associated metadata records will be harvested. If it's selective full text, then only the records that match your institution's holdings will be harvested. So the next set of screenshots will be of our Primo VE instance, showing before and after the CDI implementation. So this is what will comprise of the third phase of the testing. This screenshot is of the current search results in our Discovery Layer 1 search, which is the UWA branding of Primo VE. So this is with our current PCI. The post-CDI features I'll highlight, I must give as a disclaimer, are under development. So they're still in the draft stage and they are subject to change. So what I'm going to show you today is not necessarily exactly how it's going to look once it's deployed. Okay, so you can see here in the current Primo environment with PCI, the multiple records are grouped together in one representative record in the result list, which the user can ungroup if desired. So this is a screenshot of the same search results in the test CDI Discovery Layer environment. So Ex Libris is still building the full functionality and algorithm for the CDI in Primo VE, which is why all the records in the screenshot are of reference entries. This won't be the case in the final product. So looking at that more closely, the first major difference is that the record count has increased from the PCI to the CDI. So it's up from 3,724 to 4,860. This is due to the improved search algorithm. Also that the multiple sources exist to see all message in the grouped record no longer appears. This is because the CDI merges records instead of grouping them. This is believed it will be less confusing for users. To use Ex Libris' terminology, this improves glanceability. New facets have also been added. For example, here you can see one for web resources. There be some more resource facets than this to be added, but as yet we haven't been made aware of them. We've just been told there will be more resource facets. And still to be added to the Primo view that aren't yet available to view are personalisation options, query expansion, a citation trail, the number of times cited, and there'll be extra facets as I mentioned, new collection facets, and a facet display name normalisation. And at the bottom of this slide, we've linked the Knowledge Centre article on the resource types in the CDI if you'd like further information when the presentations are released. Okay, so looking at the roadmap, in November, UWA Alma production environment will be upgraded for early access, and the working group will draw to a close earlier in the new year. For all other Alma customers, the move to CDI will consist of the following phases. So enablement will be in February and March of 2020. For Primo customers, activations in Primo Central will be copied to Alma and all CDI functionality will be activated. A notification will be sent by Ex Libris a week prior, and then again when the move has taken place. Existing activations in Alma will not be affected. Ex Libris suggests subscribing to the CDI move notifications and familiarising yourself with the new activation workflow in order to prepare for this. So individual switchover will be from March to June 2020. Customers will be able to manually switch to CDI in their Alma production environment. This can be done by setting a flag in the Primo Central institutional profile, which, when set, will prompt the system to direct all searches to the CDI instead of the PCI. There will then be a general switchover in July 2020. So during this phase, all remaining customers will be automatically switched to the CDI. All members of consortia will be moved to the CDI and switched to production to CDI at the same time in July. However, if some consortium members use SFX rather than Alma, no switching is going to take place until the single activation is available in SFX later in 2020, and all members will then be switched together then. Ex Libris have stated further information will be made available about this all in due course. So today we've looked at what is the CDI, the user benefits for Ex Libris, UWA's expectations, the working group themselves, the project timeline, some additional tasks, screenshots, and a roadmap. So we're happy to take some questions, but please be reminded that I'm not from Ex Libris, so I can only speak on UWA's experiences. I'd also like to invite you to share your institution's experience of the Primo Central Index. So how have you managed it, and what would you like to see improved? And as I mentioned earlier, the Ex Libris CDI team's email address is available at the bottom if you would like to direct any technical questions about how the CDI is going to function there.
With the PCI descriptions that you gave feedback would be missed, you didn't mention if they were taking that on board and putting them in Alma then.
Because they haven't responded to that. It was given back as feedback that we were disappointed that the descriptions weren't going to be included, but so far we've given all of our feedback to Ex Libris, but we haven't kind of received anything back in return. So the kind of issues that we've had, we don't know whether they're going to be implemented or not at this point.
And the, I'll use quotation marks, improved search algorithm, increasing the search results.
Yeah.
Did they actually say what the specifics of that is?
No, we haven't been given any further information apart from it being improved. So yeah, as in terms of how that actually works and why you get more search results, I couldn't say. But again, that might be something you could send to the CDI team.
Yeah, I've sent them lots of questions. But I would be thinking actually that would just be the nature of the CDI being 3.6 billion as opposed to 1.7 billion in PCI rather than an algorithm change?
Yeah, exactly. So again, I don't really know how this algorithm's going to work. Yeah.
I might send that one in my next batch as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned one of the things that University of Western Australia are planning to do is going to be testing the performance.
Yes.
So I assume that's things like how long pages take to load and stuff like that.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I'm curious how you're planning on doing that. Is someone just going to physically sit there with a stopwatch, or have you got a tool in mind?
Well, I asked that question anticipating that that might be a question, but as yet that part of the project hasn't been kind of decided on. As far as I know, the actual way that we're planning to run that part of the project hasn't been fully developed yet. I think that's actually happening now in terms of actually testing before and after performance. Yeah. Sorry, but yeah, if also I think on the, well, it's not on this page, but on the first slide, I also had Sonja's email address. So if you do want some further information, Sonja, she'll also be able to watch this playback.
I'm just always curious about how people are testing
Oh
these
yeah, I
sorts
know.
of
Well,
things. So
that was
the
my
idea of
first question, is how we actually planning to test
performance
it.
is really very curious.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now, we're nearing lunchtime, but just before we break for lunch, is there a Gary in the room? Yes, Gary. Do you want to come up? Gary, before we break for lunch, Gary, I believe you had some interesting things about synthetics to share with us. So, Gary, you're standing between everyone else and lunch. I'll give you 10 minutes. And when you're done, I have a few more housekeeping things to get through with people, so no running away.
So I guess that means 5 minutes. I think last time I stood